Hi, welcome to the Nigerian Network podcast. Today we are going to talk about some exciting topics, and I think the key one is why we need a new Nigeria in the first place. And then we can move on to who is a new Nigerian, and then we anchor on how do we create the aligned mindset of a new Nigerian. And then we talk about the visions of hope for the new Nigeria. It's exciting times for us Nigerians these days as we approach new ways of thinking, new engagement, and new challenges. We've all witnessed the issues with our last elections, but we are confident that the results will come through in favor of justice. So, based on that, we've decided to engage formally in discussions that would aid our personal growth and development. This is one of the essential factors of this podcast. So I hope you enjoy it. And, I'm looking forward to further engagements. I've always been under the impression that these things are needed.
Yeah.
Because while we have a situation where there's a lot of anger and anxiety and tension going on one parallel line, there must be the opposite.
Yeah.
Another parallel line. So there must be hope, excitement,
Yes.
and happiness on one side.
The vision, yeah.
Yeah, because not everybody can afford to be angry.
True.
Everybody can afford to be anxious. So how do you balance it? How do you balance it from a Nigerian point of view? Which has led us to realize that, well, we have to have custodians of the mindset.
True.
The mindset being a new Nigeria.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of Nigerians understand that concept yet. We are struggling a lot mentally, and since we don't have mental health support, we have to do it ourselves. If we start with sharing our views on why we need a new Nigeria in the first place, and then we can go into who is a new Nigerian from individual point of view, and then how do we create the aligned mindset of a new Nigerian, and then we can obviously end it up with general conversations about the visions of hope for a new Nigeria. We can kick off the conversation, and first and foremost, I would say it's a podcast, and based on the fact that it's all about our story, our character, and our voices. We have a story in the fact that we align with a new Nigeria. Our voices is what we have as our own unique gifts, so we want to share those voices and align it with the story. But the key thing is our own individual characters, which we obviously bring into forth now. Well, let me start by saying this is all based on hope, and the hope is based on an aligned vision. And when it comes to hope, I think one of the most powerful quotes I've seen, especially from an ex-president, is from Barack Obama, who said, "Hope in the face of difficulty, hope in the face of uncertainty, the audacity of hope, and in the end, that is God's greatest gift to us, a belief that, in things not seen, a belief in things not seen, a belief that there is definitely a better day ahead." So that can take us into the point of our conversation now to say, why do we need a new Nigeria?
Well, it's a good development to find us here, doing what we should do for our nation. And your question is very clear. And I think if we all understand why we need a new Nigeria, then it's become easier for us to begin to look out for it. Every nation, as we know, just like every individual is created by God, every nation is created by God. And for every creation of God, there is a purpose. And when that purpose is not realized, people will keep trying until they come to it. So the issue we have around Nigeria now, why we need a new Nigeria, is that we believe that the Nigeria we have seen is not the purpose of Nigeria. That's not the reason why Nigeria is created. Nigeria is not created with all the mineral resources and with all the intellectual properties around Nigeria to be wasted the way it's wasting, or for Nigerians to go to prefer to be in other countries why instead of building their own nation, or for Nigerians to hate their own identity, their nationality, or for Nigerians to be angry each time issues are raised concerning unity, progress of the country. So the fact that we have lived in this mess all these years does not mean that is where we ought to be as a people. And unfortunately, we've had leaders whose thoughts are different from, bringing a Nigeria that can work for us all. Because the new Nigeria is something we're saying should be a thing that every Nigerian would love, would be proud of, will be willing to be part of, will be willing to participate in. So we are not having it yet because we've not seen a people and we've not gotten a right direction into seeing a new Nigeria. I believe that when Nigerians on their own begin to see, what do you call it, the certainty and the realization and the goodies and the joy, the fulfillment that will come with the new Nigeria, they will abandon where they are and they will look for it. But because we've not been able to get it right, we've not been able to paint a picture of what it is, they've not had the knowledge or the inkling that one day Nigeria will become what it is. And to get us started is to take us back to when Nigeria started as a nation, when we had our independence. It was said that Nigeria has all it takes to compete with the best in the world. Our currency was almost equal or even better in terms of value, compared to dollar and pounds. But today we've seen a total decrease of what we had because we've not been able to manage, and it's purely because of lack of leadership. And when we talk about lack of leadership, it's lack of citizenship, because we were first citizens before we become leaders.
Yeah.
Who you are and what you are as a citizen is what you translate into leadership. So over these years, we've not gotten Nigerians, we've not been able to build a citizenship standard that will be able to build a nation that we desire and deserve. But today, we are starting that, from this point of view to reveal to Nigerians the need for a new Nigeria. It's not negotiable, and it's nothing to compare with where we are or whatever we can imagine differently from attaining a new Nigeria. The new Nigeria is the only way forward. The new Nigeria is the only thing that we need to do in order to be called humans and to be respected across the country. Today, my passport is treated anyhow, not because of me, but because of the way they view my country, because of the way we have, we've lived over these years, because of the stories they are hearing about us. Unknown to them that in Nigeria there are good people. We have great men and women who are noble, who in their own would always give the best, for humanity. But the country is not giving us that capacity, they're not giving us that leverage and not encouraging us. But that in itself does not mean that this is who we are. So the new Nigeria is to bring out the authenticity of the Nigerianness that is in us, but has been taken away or has been eclipsed, by the past. Now, the fact is that the need for a new Nigeria is not negotiable. It's something we must all decide now, to take responsibility and build it. Because once we begin to build it, nothing can stop it from emerging. And today I can assure you that all that Nigeria needs to arrive in the new Nigeria is already available, and we have all it takes to drive it to a conclusive end. I think I can stop now and listen to others.
Okay. Excellent. You see, well, there's two things you said that are really key from my point of view, and then obviously Leslie, you'd have to pick it up from there. When you look at the authenticity of a Nigerian citizen, what actually makes us unique or authentic? the new Nigeria not being negotiable is a discussion as well, because we can negotiate with Nigerians to build something new if we want to be factual about it. From this point, at this point in time, I would agree and say yes, it's non-negotiable because we've hit rock bottom and there's really nowhere to go from here. It's our lowest. I don't think I've seen Nigeria this bad. So there's
Never
negotiate apart from going to something new. But prior to that, we have had instances where we could discuss with people and say, what is your idea of something new? But from your point of view, Leslie, if we look at Nigeria as it is now as well, and then we look at the aligned vision, what would be your own take? What would you see, as a need for us to have a new Nigeria?
Okay. Thank you, Solomon. I will start by saying that the new Nigeria is not our decision. Just like you just became aware one day and discovered you're a human being living life on earth. After some years already living on earth, you didn't decide to become a human being. Somebody made that decision. And like Chris said, just as human beings are created by God, nations too are creations of God. So the new Nigeria, why the new Nigeria? The reason for the new Nigeria is because it is not up to us. It's a decision that is bigger than us. I tell people that the new Nigeria is an eternally existing reality. It's already existing. It started in eternity. It's not anybody's idea. We just woke up and discovered it. And like I hate religion. I hate religion with a passion, but I want to make a quote from the Bible, not because I'm religious, because I see the Bible as a very, very spiritual book, as a manual for life. And there's a verse in the Bible that says, first comes the natural, the bad, the rotten, the evil, and then comes the spiritual. So the reason for the new Nigeria is because like Chris said, there is a purpose. There is an irrevocable purpose attached to the existence of Nigeria, and that purpose cannot be stopped. That purpose cannot be aborted. It cannot be nullified. Right. All we can do is realize it and then flesh it out, walk it out. And the truth is that in making the new Nigeria a reality, downloading it, so to speak, from the spiritual realm into the physical. Right. We don't need everybody at once. We need pioneers, trailblazers. We need people who can and who are able to see the invisible. Right. People who are able to touch the untouchable. People who are able to realize that this is already here. This is already existing. Life is replete. Human history is replete with examples of people, men and women who saw something nobody else saw. And when they began to speak about it, everybody abused them, insulted them. Galileo, for example, many examples, the Wright brothers, can go on and on, but they stuck to their guns because once you see that thing, you can't unsee it. Once you touch it, you cannot untouch it. It's bigger than you. It's a life of its own. It's a force of its own. And the reason for the new Nigeria is because, Nigeria is destined, against the background of our fighting one another, of our corruption, of our ineptitudes and mismanagement of resources. Out of that chaos and disorder, the new Nigeria is going to exemplify, a synergy, a beautiful synergy of the different ethnic nationalities that were at once at war with one another. Right. It will be a tapestry. It will be something that when it comes for, the world will see, the world will be blown away. the world will be amazed, because they will say, this is the Nigeria that everybody cursed, the Nigeria that nobody thought any good can come out of. And it has begun to typify and demonstrate something that the world is looking for. So out of this chaos, just like the mythical phoenix dies, and out of the ashes of his death, it resurrects and becomes light again. That's the new Nigeria that is coming for. There's a story I normally tell. Honestly, I forgot where I had the story first, but it has become such a powerful thing for me. It talks about an ancient Asian community that got a precious inheritance, from their forefathers. And it was made of clay, very beautiful heirloom, something they revered, they worshipped. Time came, the thing began to crumble and break away. And they were terrified. They didn't know what to do. They tried everything to preserve it. They could not. Lo and behold, one day the thing fell apart. Guess what? Solomon, what they saw inside was far more precious than what was outside. What was inside was precious metal, gold, of the same stature, but hidden inside the clay. Now, clay is brittle, which is the old Nigeria. Clay is fragile, which is the old Nigeria. Clay is not something you want to do anything with. It's bound to break away. So it's the old Nigeria, the chaos, the wickedness, the corruption, the activities of the political leaders who are using tribe and religion to make Nigeria. That's the brittle, that's the clay. That is, you can't preserve it. It's dying. And then the beauty inside, which is the gold, is coming for, which is the new Nigeria. And I can tell you boldly, a time is coming, and the time is here, that the ethnic nationalities who used to hate one another will love one another, care for one another, and live together. One more analogy I'll give, and
why not? Sure.
Yeah. Okay. The human body is made up of over 30 trillion cells. One single human body. 30 trillion cells. Over 100 organs in the body. The brain, the esophagus, the liver, the kidney, what have you. Then some scientists say 8 systems, some say 9, some say 10, 11, depending. But all these systems, all these 30 trillion cells, over 100 organs, 8 to 10, 11 systems work together in perfect synergy as one, and that is a picture, a metaphor for the new Nigeria. That, remember when you are just an infant, a toddler, how your life was chaotic, poo-pooed at any time, cried at any time. You know what? Out of that tiny bundle of disorder and chaos has grown up these adults now that, operates as a powerful human being and all of that stuff. So that's a metaphor for the new Nigeria. That's why it is inevitable. Like Chris said, what we're experiencing is not the end. It's a journey. It's a destination we're going through. It's like building the highest building in the whole world. When you go to a building site, there's so much chaos. But by the time it's done and you unveil it, you'll find that, this is a wonder to behold. So that's the new Nigeria for you. It's because it has something to give to the world, something to give to humanity that humanity needs.
Right.
That's the why for the new Nigeria.
That's I was waiting for that punchline, the why. You spoke about the purpose as well. I think maybe we should, if we, 1-2 minutes and really anchor on purpose. Now we know the why we have a new Nigeria. Before we go into who is the new Nigerian, which would be the second subject matter, we have about 10 minutes to each talk about this new Nigeria that we really want. Don't get me wrong, I have a own vision of a new Nigeria, and mine is based on expectations from our childhood dreams, because I lived in a Nigeria that was relatively good, so it's easy for me to realign hope, because I'm like, why don't you just take it back to how it used to be before when I was young? Even that was not perfect, but it was really good. You know, it was quite exciting. A lot of things were done by the government to aid development and growth, you know. So I have a place I can always fall back to. But most of the young people these days, they don't have anything. Like someone who was born 30 years ago, they haven't seen a good Nigeria. They struggle to say Nigeria was good before. So my question to you guys is, you know, what is the actual purpose of wanting a new Nigeria? We know why, but what's the purpose of it? Because you're aligned with purpose there. So what is the purpose and how does that sit with the current situation?
Okay. Yeah, like we said, that when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable.
There you go.
Now, over the years, we've operated as a nation then without this purpose. And truly, the purpose of Nigeria has been highlighted differently. Even everybody will tell you that Africa is waiting for Nigeria.
Yeah.
Even those who are non-Nigerians. You know, when I listen to some of African citizens talk about Nigeria, you wonder, how did they get it? We that in Nigeria don't even know about who we are, you know, but others can cite and speak of who we truly are as a people. And I will start by, you know, relating with this very important quote of Nelson Mandela when he says that the world will not respect Africa until Nigeria earns that respect.
That's true.
And he went further to say that the Black people all over the world that are waiting for Nigeria, or they are looking up to Nigeria as their hope and courage. But the last sentence he made on that quote is the most important to me, which we are not taking very seriously.
Right.
And he said, Nigerian citizens must be made to understand these facts. Why it's become important for the Nigerian citizens to be made to understand this fact is that if you don't know that purpose, if you don't know who you are, you can never live up to it.
Okay.
So imagine where a Nigerian, whether from the east, west, or south, or calls himself an Hausa man or Igbo man or Yoruba man, understand that his standing is what the whole Africa is waiting for. That Nigeria, when Nigeria becomes strong, the whole Africa will get their freedom. And also that the whole Africa or the whole Black race will be proud of being a Black if only we get it right. I'm sure that every Nigerian will put behind him or her whatever that will stop Africa from being free, or whatever that will make the Black race of not becoming a proud people. Now, that is in itself. Unfortunately, you look at the trend of our leadership. Nobody talks about that. Nobody has even one day talked about, you know, how do we put Nigeria in order, not to talk of how Nigeria can free the African people. And because we have derailed and going on a negative path of it, let me tell you, in the past 30 years, the world has evolved in everything they do. Those who are good in innovation, they have evolved, they have improved in it. But what has Nigeria been doing all these years? We took a pattern of life, and I can tell you, we increased our momentum in the wrong direction that we took. That's why 20 years ago was better than 15 years. 15 years was better than 10 years. 10 years was better than 5 years. 5 years was better than 2 years. 2 years was better than last year. Last year was better than this year. You see that we've been progressing in error, or we have been moving forward in error. So the only way out now is for us to realign who we truly are and then begin to grow. And if we do that this year, between next year and next 2 years, we would have made progress in the right direction. So I think that is the major issue that we need to capture. That the old order is not something, it's not sustainable, it's not something we can depend on. It's not something we have to even believe in. You know, like now, sometimes some people will tell me what is not going on in Nigeria, and I tell them I don't want to hear, because that order is gone. We need to give a new direction, a new narration into who we truly are. Let us begin to speak in that area and leave the past that is not giving us any glory behind. Let us leave it behind so that we can focus on what is new and what is good. Because as far as we continue, to make references to the past, as far as we keep looking back, we cannot move forward. That is the truth of where we are as a people. That Nigerians must understand this truth and make sure that every Nigerian understand this truth, that we are a people who must declare and who must provide freedom for the other countries in Africa, and that the whole world is looking up to us to define the human race through the black race, who the black men are, who the black people are, who are we, all those things that have eluded us in the past. Yeah. How do we get it back? How do we exemplify to the world that the black people actually have something that the world is waiting for? I think, in my own opinion, someone like Nelson Mandela demonstrated the courage of the black person, in his leadership example. He demonstrated it when he showed that he wasn't angry over what has happened to us. Like now, we shouldn't be angry over what is happening to us in Nigeria. The Africanness in us is to forgive and to deploy those things that we know that will move us forward, rather than looking back at what has happened or fighting those who have fought us. That was the example Nelson Mandela, brought to the fore, that made him one of the resounding leadership personalities in the world of today. That the world are still learning from him, learning from this African gentleman, who a true leader should be. So that is one of the things that we must understand at this point, that time has come when we must put behind us our past and be able to move forward and be able to, carve out a niche of that true Africanness in us, so that it can become the discussion. If we keep looking at the past and we keep making reference to the past, we are going nowhere. We must put our past behind, and we have to bring about a new narrative, which is the new Nigeria, what the new Nigeria is, and where we are going from here. Okay,
that's Chris, that was very passionate, man. I'll you remember that this is a conversation. So don't get too upset. So in alignment with purpose, which is obviously what we're trying to extract from your excellent submission in view of that fact. You said that you mentioned the word liberation, right? And Chris, are you there? Right? So
yes, I'm here.
You mentioned the word liberation, and then you aligned it with the African as well. So obviously that would take us very nicely into, so who, from that point of view, if we all agree that we need a new Nigeria, and we have one in the offing, right? The only problem we had before was we couldn't really visualize this new Nigeria because obviously we didn't have anybody to align leadership with. But now that we have a semblance of that, and then we identified why we need the new Nigeria, and then the purpose of a new Nigeria, essentially you're saying liberation in so many ways. You can scale liberation to liberation of the black race, liberation of Africa itself, liberation of actual minds. But before liberation comes through, Leslie, who is a new Nigerian from your point of view? So, and how do you align that with what we've been discussing so far?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. How do you visualize a new Nigeria?
Okay. All right. I would like to add to what Chris said about the purpose of Nigeria. As a group, we've discussed it extensively. Let me just give a short definition, and then I will go on from there. The purpose of Nigeria is to express, teach, and help humanity to achieve global harmony.
Wow.
I'll repeat that. The purpose of the existence of Nigeria is to express, teach, and help humanity to achieve global harmony. I call it the ultimate human civilization. That's the purpose of Nigeria. So with that in mind now, who is a new Nigerian? A new Nigerian is somebody who first and foremost sees himself and other Nigerians as Nigerians. Ethnicity and religion take a secondary place, and we see ourselves as part of one body, living together, working together, showing love, empathy, concern to one another, and not allowing our different ethnicities and religions to affect what we do. A new Nigerian is someone who has eschewed, the us versus them syndrome. We don't see other tribes as enemies. We don't see them as people that we must attack and abuse. We just see themselves as part of the way my nose treats my knee, the way my ear treats my liver. Right. We're just one body, living together, expressing beauty, expressing purpose. So a new Nigerian is someone who loves the other Nigerian as themselves. And when we talk like this, the first thing people tell you, it is not possible. But that's where people like us come in. Because, like Nelson Mandela said, they always say it is impossible until somebody does it.
Yeah.
So Martin Luther King Jr. said, until we learn to live together as brothers, we shall perish as fools.
Yeah.
So you will find that there are some nations in this world. They are multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, but they've learned to live together as one. Before America got into the chaos that it is, it was a perfect example of a melting pot where people, the only original Americans are the Indian Americans. Yeah. Everybody else, including the WASP, WASP, they all came from outside America. But before they allowed, certain things to get into their heads, they were a very, very good picture of, people from different backgrounds living together as one. So Nigeria is going to take it to the next level. So a new Nigerian is someone who sees other Nigerians, as brothers, as one family, here to do something for humanity that has never been achieved for humanity before. And that's what I call the ultimate human civilization. So
I think you are talking about liberation. I think you said what I was listening to what you said attentively, and I think what you summarize is liberation. That a new Nigeria must be liberated. I guess you would have to define or scale what liberation means, because if you're liberated from tribal thinking, that's Nigerian there, right? Yeah. If you're liberated from corruption, if you're liberated from the norms that we are going through now, like bribery and everything,
corruption,
so a new Nigerian needs to be liberated from certain mindset, because if we have said Nigeria, if we have said Nigeria is poised to liberate Africa or even liberate the black man, to bring him into a certain way of thinking, that means in alignment with that, the new Nigerian who is going to accept every other person as a Nigerian, accept himself, accept the next man, accept the next tribal person, that person must be liberated from a certain way of thinking. So if we personify that and we create a persona of a liberated individual who happens to be a Nigerian, that could be an ideal Nigerian. That could be a new Nigeria. And then, Chris, if you want to quantify that for us and say, okay, if that is the case, though, how do we now create a mindset of liberation to identify or align with that new Nigerian? You see what I mean? Because we put ourselves as custodians of certain narratives. If we're going to change the narratives, or we're going to change the mindset of people, or we're going to help people realign with certain facts, regardless of what the current situation is, these things are going to happen. right? So if these things are going to happen, and we know for a fact that it will happen, it might happen next week or the week after, or in 3 years' time, or in 2027, this thing will happen, which is a new Nigeria would come through, because this is about how do we now create the aligned mindset of a new Nigerian? If we say Nigeria is poised to liberate Africa on a level, Nigeria is poised to create an individual with a liberated mind. So how do we now start creating that aligned mindset for a new Nigerian? What can we start doing individually to personify, or rather to create a persona of a new Nigerian? Really a case of how do we create the mindset now for a new Nigerian based on a liberated individual?
Sorry, can I chip in for a second?
Yeah.
I think I said that when we had that space thing a few days ago, about how the things that have sort of evolved have actually made me rethink and change my minds about stuff. Right. I think that we actually need to take into account that those of us in diaspora are almost sort of like a different tribe for Nigerians now. Have you guys thought about that? In conversations I've had with a few of the people, like on Twitter and stuff, there's a girl who was, she didn't know that I was in diaspora, and somebody was asking one of the sort of governor-elects, I think it's like for the new one they're doing, it's all very confusing. And she was like, oh, those diasporans are so rude, and I can understand it. Like, those of us who've lived abroad have sort of embraced the idea, and some of us actually left Nigeria because of that fact, that a person deserves respect because they show respect to you, not like sort of traditional Nigerians who think, oh, this person's older than you, therefore automatically, whether they're doing rubbish or not. Yeah. And really, in speaking to her, I think what sort of rubbed her off was just the fact that this lady who was calling in from New York was very outspoken about, what she was asking this, candidate. And for me, I didn't see anything wrong with it, because like for me, she was asking genuine questions like, what are your plans? What do you plan to do with the swamp? What do you plan to do with the villages, And it makes you sort of step back and think, actually, if it had been, say, what I would call a Nigerian who asked that question, they wouldn't have asked it in the same way. Do you see? And even the candidate was sort of taken aback, and it is something that we will need to consider. And it hadn't occurred to me before. And yes, it did happen to me. Even like I had said before, I hadn't been to Nigeria in 10 years. Right. And then I went last summer. Up to the point that my cousin said to me, she just said, and I just kept this one as a sort of badge of honor. And every time I say something, she'll go, oh, you people and your air-conditioned English. They really do look at us as a different breed. The ideas that we come up with, the things that come out of our mouths, right. I believe they look at us like we're foreigners. And that is something that we're going to need, because if you look at it now, I was talking to my sister who's in France and a friend as well, who's Taiwanese actually. And I was saying that more and more, I'm looking at the analogy of, if you look at the American slaves, where, you had the house slaves and you had those ones that were out in the field, and how the house slaves felt superior to the ones out in the fields, right? And I can see it in Nigeria now, that Stockholm syndrome. It's there. I've had the arguments. And just imagine, let's just even fast forward and say, okay, just as we'd hoped, the new Nigeria is here, Peter Obi is our president. We've managed to get rid of, a lot of these corrupt people. Yeah. And those that we didn't get rid of have cooperated to, go the straight and narrow path. It's going to be tough for those of us from diaspora. Do you realize that?
Well, that's why we're here, in terms of setting the tone before we get there. And you see, you're talking about the same thing we just mentioned, which is liberation. We might call it a different name. It might be emancipation of a mindset. of mental slavery. It could be that,
yeah.
but it's still a form of liberation, right? So, but what the example you gave is almost perfect, because there are certain things that we out here in diaspora are free to do. Like, for instance, I don't have to put a sir if I'm speaking to somebody, regardless of how old you are. But back home, it's almost like a thing. Don't put it, they think you're disrespectful.
Yeah.
Right? That's a form that needs to be liberated. Once you remove that, you get a new individual altogether. You get a young person who is ready to express themselves without any fear. So that's one thing that we can chip away from the old block. And that's Donkey, I think that's what you're alluding to, because if that continues, the Nigerians coming from different parts of the world, which is going to start happening, is already happening now, they're going to face this blockage in view of collaboration and alignment. Hence, we have obviously the Nigerian Network. But the discussion, or rather the conversation, obviously, is how do we create that aligned mindset of a new Nigerian? Part of it is removing that mental slavery. How are you going to do that? How do you intend to do that? Chris must have a view. Les might have a view. Duncan, obviously you have a view. David might have a view. I might have a view. There might be things that we need to start calling out in terms of removing this, you're chiseling off the old to reveal a new Nigerian. So what are those things? My thing is, if we converse about these things become timeless. When people watch, the people listen.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can align with them. Oh, that's me. Oh, that's not me. And then they know exactly what this new person is. But until we identify all these ills and bring them out, I don't think they'll be ready for the new Nigeria in the offing. So yeah, you're right. Let's take it back to Chris now. So how would you go about in creating this aligned mindset of a new Nigerian? What are the things we need to start getting rid of? You can align it with what Donkey just said, or examples I just gave, or you might have a new approach as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We're all talking towards achieving the same goal, and that is changing the mindset. Well, one thing is very clear: what you hear every day is what you end up believing in. Yeah. And what you believe in is what you become. Then what you become is what you will produce, and it will just keep producing its own kind. So now, over the years, what we have done is to come up with what we call the new Nigeria content, including the belief system in the new Nigeria, which we tag as the new Nigeria creed. The new Nigeria creed. Maybe I'll forward it to us so that we'll go through it. It's also in the making, so that we look at it and fine-tune it. Because when you look at it, you're saying, yeah, this is the Nigeria I want. This is the Nigeria I want. But because there must be a belief. Yes, I will send it to you.
I mean, is it long? If you can read it out. If it's not too long, if you can read it out.
Yeah, it's a bit long.
Okay.
It's a bit long.
Excerpts. You can read just a bit of it.
It'd be nice to hear the new idea, because
Okay.
I know.
Okay. Maybe you'll give me a few seconds. I will get it out then.
Yeah, because guys, we are trying to. It's a podcast about particular subject matter. How do we create an aligned mindset for a new Nigerian? If we say we have a creed, why not? All we have to do is amplify that creed, and people who find it interesting, boom, you've sorted.
Plug into it. Yeah.
You sorted that problem. If we say, Donkey was saying, if we say, well, look, people look at us differently, then we have to find out why they look at us differently, and then cut that out of the system. You get a new person entirely. Especially from the other person's point of view. If I can convince my great aunt in the village that I don't have to call her Teresa all the time. I can say, hey, Teresa, how you doing? Let's have a good time. And that makes her look at me differently and think about me differently. Like, she can now relate with me. You've created a new Nigerian right there. If you can convince somebody that stealing is wrong, based on you just being consistent with their approach, you've created a new Nigerian. Now, but the persona of a new Nigerian is what we're after. So a new Nigerian is one that would, like you said, is a liberated being.
Yeah.
That's 100%. They must be liberated, from my point of view, liberated to do exactly what it is they want to do in view of progress for the country. And an aligned vision with where the country is going. If we say and agree that Nigeria is poised to liberate Africa on a level, especially from a mental point of view, then as custodians of that narrative, we have to start making sure we are churning out new Nigerians to support that drive, to align with that vision, to align with that mission. So a creed in this respect would be great. You know,
yeah,
I would really like to see part of it. But while we're waiting for Chris, I mean, we can.
I'd like to quickly chip something while Chris is getting the creed. And I would like to say that our work is not as tough as it may seem to be. Why am I saying that? Because that reality, that resource is already inside of every Nigerian. You know, it's there already. That's why you see some people already typifying it, exemplifying it. So we just need to, the impunity and the boldness that those who do wrong and evil and corruption display when they're doing it. It's the same impunity that those of us who know the truth, who have it, must begin to display in love, you know, because it's already there. Inside of every human being, the good is there, the bad is there. The light is there, the darkness is there. It depends on the environment or the culture that person is raised in, the environment is raised in. You know, one quick point, then I'll hand over to Chris so he can read the creed, parts of the creed. You know what happens when you take a tuning fork? Right. You know, tuning forks, maybe there are 10 tuning forks in a room, and then you pick up one, and when you hit it, you know, the other tuning fork that is on the same frequency with this one will begin to vibrate and respond to what this has done. So this truth, this love, this empathy, this new Nigerian is already in the heart of every Nigerian. And it's the what's the word? The forerunners. There's a word I want. Those in the vanguard who already have this truth. Where the tuning fork will activate the others. When we hold on to what we have, and exemplify it to bring it out in the others. In addition to the other things we need to do, not just this alone.
Excellent. All right.
Wow, so, beautiful.
Honestly, yeah. So we just need to up the vibration of the others.
He sounds like a philosopher. Are you a philosopher?
You can't do this type of a job and not be a philosopher.
I think we are all philosophers these days, and because I was speaking to Donkey this morning, and we were talking about how there's a lot of anger, a lot of anxiety going on one parallel line. And I think I hinted at that when we started. There must be, opposites do exist. So if something is going that direction, another thing out of the other direction, and then you find the balance in between.
True.
So that's where we are. So that creed, Chris, if you want to give us read that would be great.
We can have it now. But before then, at least the stepping stone to the creed is the dream, the new Nigeria dream, which is Nigeria will be a new society where national diversities are seamlessly united on the basis of human equality, societal progress, and decency. A strong reference point for zero discrimination, remedy for Africa's deprivation, and pioneer for global harmony. That is the dream, the Nigeria we want to see. It's a Nigeria that will be, that where national diversity are seamlessly united on the basis of human equality, societal progress, and decency. A strong reference point for zero discrimination, remedy for Africa's deprivation, and then pioneer for global harmony. Then the new Nigeria Creed reads from number one of it is that a new Nigeria is possible. That's first of all, that we must believe that it's possible.
Yeah.
And that we will make it a reality. That is our responsibility to make it a reality. Then two says that there is strength in our unity and there is abundance in our diversity.
Yeah.
We have no ethnicity, no religion, and no social class other than our Nigerianness. We are Nigerians. Our religion is looking out for each other's safety and well-being. Right. Our social class is other person's status of life, and our comfort is other people's happiness. Sorry, you may be hearing some noise. We have a serious rain here, and as usual, the Nigerian syndrome, they've taken our lives.
Okay. The old Nigerian syndrome.
Yeah, the old Nigerian syndrome, yes. So the third one is that there is no gain without pain. There is no gain without pain. The new Nigerian vision requires individual, selfless sacrifices and responsibilities for the happiness of others and the pride of our nation. The fourth says, our true transformation as a nation is rooted in our character and integrity, which begets the good leadership values our nation is in their need of.
Right.
Number 5, the power of love is our weapon. The love of power destroys human leadership.
Right.
Destroys human leadership. Then the 6th one is when our icon of love, character, and integrity begins with us, the new Nigeria dream will become a reality in all aspects of our national existence. We owe Nigeria the responsibility to be selfless in our service to her. 7, to believe and accept Nigeria, patronize our homemade goods and services are acts of patriotism to the nation. To pride in our ability and solidarity in growing each other is the strength of our nationality. 8, we must truly love Nigeria to be morally and emotionally fit to help and support one another. 9, all lives matter. All professions and occupations are needed. All religion, states is important. We are all equal. No life, no profession, no religion is better than others. We are unique in our strengths and need each other to have better life and better Nigeria. Number 10, we place character and service ahead of money and wealth accumulation. Character is golden. It is the hallmark for a life of meaning. Service is a responsibility we owe others and the society. Number 11, there are emerging leaders in Nigeria with true African blood running in their veins. They are ready to live or die to protect the Nigerian interests. They are the true citizens and leaders who seek the happiness of fellow citizens in the spirit of patriotism and national interest. Number 12, the new Nigeria followers will see the emerging leaders as the voice as soon as they become symbols and icons of national dignity. They will go all out to respect, appreciate, and emulate their good leadership attributes.
Right.
Number 13, there is no room for violence and jungle justice of any sort. As we disagree based on ideal principles, we will find a common and selfless ground to agree without rancor and bloodletting. No blood is worth being right. Number 14, which is the last one, paying tax is an act of love and not law. We set it as an act of charity and citizenship responsibility. We contribute into a common cause for the good of all, the poor and the rich alike. If blessed with more, give more for the good of the poor. That is the end of that.
Wow. I'm not sure I don't know what to say because you've covered everything. David said in the chat, the dream has to start by reorientation and starting from the children. I can only imagine this being read to children in primary school, how that child will be a very, very good Nigerian by the time they are finishing primary school. It's no, I mean, you can see there. Please share it with us in the group at some point. And I don't think we should start or we should wait for the book to be released before we start driving this narrative, especially here on the network.
Yeah.
I think if we have these 14 points here and start, we can even have conversations around that point. Like for the first point now, if you can read out the first point again, please, because obviously I didn't capture all of them. The first
point is a new Nigeria is possible.
It's possible, exactly,
and we can make it a reality. That we have all it takes to make it a reality.
You see, that point, obviously, that's how we started this podcast. I didn't even know that, but that's the start of this podcast. A new Nigeria is possible. So you see, that conversation can go on for 6 months, and getting 500,000 people to understand, because impression is everything. If you repeat something, repetition is the law of how it goes when it says if you repeat it's of impression. So it will impress in the mind if we keep on saying things like this in view of creating a new mindset for a new Nigeria. So you go on our social media platform or whatever it is we do going forward, you kick it off, a new Nigeria is possible. Even that alone, it makes the average Nigerian rethink what you mean by that, because it could mean something to you, Les. It could mean something to me. It could mean something different to David. It means something different to you, Chris. It could mean something entirely different to Duncan. But that possibility, as long as there are custodians willing to drive that narrative and amplify it on any level, boom, you already have a movement. And then you have 14 of those. 14 of those is the case of how do you now package it strategically and feed it into the narrative, or feed it into an orientation program, or feed it into a book or program, a movie, whatever it is, but how do you get that message across? Because majority of those things are divine anyway, so that's...
If I may suggest,
sure.
When I was listening to Chris, right, it is New Nigerian Man, when you sort of started talking, some of it felt to me like things that we should sort of change in like our national anthem, as it were, and then I saw TNN's sort of suggestion about the children, and I thought, yeah, that could work as well. But then there are some bits that when I listened to you, I thought, hold on, actually, the government people should, swear to some of these, because at the end of the day, even with the kids, it's what we adults emulate to the children. You understand that they're going to follow. So why wait for that generation to grow up? The people who want to sign up for office should understand what the society expects of them as well. That was basically my sort of the direction that I went as you sort of read through.
I was getting a vibe on the fact that we don't have a creed. We have an anthem, we have a pledge, but we don't have a creed. So this is the creed. You obviously have the patent to that. It's a case of driving it out there to, there's nothing negative about that. Everything about everything you said is positive and makes perfect sense. It's not centered around any kind of politics. It's actually centered around empathy. So introducing it to young Nigerians or would-be Nigerians, even to lost Nigerians, because we are trying to create mindset, and that's our fourth point of the conversation. So let's obviously we're going to have more of this podcast, and we're going to go into, I think we should even have a podcast centered around the creed at some point. Let's talk about the 14 points, and then you see other people share their views about those points. But now that leads us to the final conversations of the day, and I think we only have about 15-20 minutes, which is the visions of hope for this new Nigeria. So now that we know, we've discussed about, the need for a new Nigeria, we've discussed about who a new Nigerian is, and from our point of view, we've kind of like summarized it, that individual needs to be liberated from a positive mindset, and then how do you align this mindset? Well, we already have a creed, there's no need to even beat about the push. We have a creed that they can align with the liberated mind to the new Nigeria. So now our collective visions of hope is what I think we should now probably kind of end with. So, Duncan, I know you didn't want to talk before, but, putting you on the spot there, can you give us a definition of hope, or rather a vision of your own kind of hope for a new Nigeria, in alignment with all we've said all day?
Oh, honestly, I just can't. I'm at that, like the last 3 weeks of like up and down and up and down, and I'm at this point where I'm holding on to my last thread of hope, to see if it ever pulls through. I just don't even want to, think that far. I mean, I think we all agree that, we want Nigeria to work, and that's basically my top priority. And we all know what it is you need to make a society work. And I just refuse to let myself think beyond that at this moment.
The reinvent, if you have to reinvent your own country, great audacity.
That I am dangerous. I'm the OCD type. You know, I'm a stickler, straight line. You do things properly, you do things right. You know, I just like to see it work. I see so much potential. You know, when I see, you know, young Nigerians, even old Nigerians, you know, I look at them and I think, you deserve a better life.
That is hope.
You know?
Yep, that is hope.
I know. Yeah, that's just it. You know, I just think it's unfair, you know, what they're having to go through. I do understand that I'm very lucky that, you know, that I got out. And that's the truth, you know, because any of us could have been there. And they deserve better.
Well, if you don't have any hope, you wouldn't be here, though. You know that. With us, because we are the ones we are waiting for.
Yeah.
Those rude diasporans.
You don't have
those rude diasporans.
It's true. I'll take that from you. That the fact that your presence is here already, that is a hope explained and rather personified. That just your presence is hopeful. Hey Chris, if you want to give us your own version of hope, or you know, what is your vision of hope for the new Nigeria? Then we'll go to Leslie, and then David can chip in, and I can chip in, and we can.
Okay. Well, against all hope, there is hope for Nigeria, and this hope is in our hands. Particularly, I want to speak concerning the people in the diaspora. You know, as much as possible, as the way we may not seem to know or understand that Nigerians here at home, they look up to you guys. And I see this new Nigeria being bettered more in the diaspora and then transported back. You know why I'm saying so? Because already the environment there and the processes there had conditioned you guys to have aligned with what true nation building is. And we can also see from here how those nations are okay. That is the reason why a lot of people are running away from here and all of that.
Right.
So imagine if you guys who are there paint a picture of the fact that you people want to come home if Nigeria is working. Right. Possibly that will make them know that there is something they have they don't even understand. So I imagine where the Nigerians in the diaspora decide to anchor a process, to build a background for this new Nigeria, and then begin to transport it down. You know, it will make people believe it the more that if Nigerians in the diaspora, they are saying all of this and they are concerned about us learning what they know in order to make Nigeria become like UK, become like America, and all of that. Inside of me, I see a new Nigeria that is better than UK, better than America, if actually we work towards it, because we have so much, around us that can translate into a beautiful environment. But beyond the beautiful environment is our individuality, our personality, which speaks volume anywhere in the world. Wherever we find opportunity, Nigerians have been up there. They've been able to tower above every other challenges in order to be one of the sought after people around the world. So that is who we are, and that has not changed. So the vision is very clear that nature has given us all that we need to become what we ought to be. All we need to do now is to have an understanding of how to get there, which is what this orientation, these templates, will bring for us. But I think in 2016, I've done a script. I've also put down a movie script for the new Nigeria. Awesome. And this can also be put into a movie that people can watch and learn what the new Nigeria is all about. Right. Cutting across our ethnic group or who we are, the age grades and all of that, who a new Nigerian truly are. So we have so much that we can translate into tangible things that people could see and be able to be motivated to do what they need to do. So for me, and as when I was speaking earlier with Leslie, he made a sentence, say, the new Nigeria is here. We are here. Therefore, the new Nigeria is possible.
That's awesome. I mean, that's the kind of thing that, when people replay this and replay it, when they hear it, they can, like I was talking to Duncan today, the essence why we want to do podcasts as opposed to jumping into spaces regularly, because podcast is a companion medium. You can listen to it while you're having a shower, while you're cooking, while you're walking, while you're jogging, and you might listen to it again and again, and it's just one line that you hear and you'd be like, wow, that's what I've been waiting to hear forever. For instance, when you were talking now, I'm pretty sure if you can see David, he's probably smiling, because when we had 2 years ago, when we ran the new Nigerian podcast, the first ever podcast we did was based on the fact that we realized that the thing missing in the Nigerian is the environment, because in alignment with what Chris was saying, we Nigerians abroad, some of us seem to operate better only because the environment is different.
Yeah.
So if you create that environment, what you're going to get is a new kind of Nigerian. It's just logic, So when you were alluding to that fact again, that, okay, Nigerians in diaspora they seem to have like an upper hand in terms of nation building. You're right, because we are operating in a different environment that seems to allow that amount of liberation. And that liberation, if harnessed properly and obviously showcased as Nigerian, it's a new individual altogether. So the creating of that environment has to be like a collective process, and that is a vision of hope. So that's from my point of view, and I mean, from your point of view, Leslie, visions of hope for a new Nigeria. What is your take on it?
Okay, two things I want to say in response to that. The first one is that in our group, we have a driving force. That driving force is all things are possible. I want to repeat that. All, AWL. Now, if you sit down and think deeply about the implication of that statement,
right,
then nobody has any right to say the new Nigeria is not possible. The only reason why all things are already possible is because all things are already existing.
Yeah.
Human senses are severely limited. If I blow a dog whistle now, no human being will hear it. There are realities existing right now as we're talking that the 5 human senses cannot access, cannot acknowledge.
You mean dimensions, right?
Yeah, dimensions. So we live in 2 dimensions simultaneously. Right. As spiritual beings, so it's the things we see, we know, we access in the spiritual realm that we bring into this realm. That's why people are able to do things that were once thought impossible.
Right.
So the second point I want to make is that we are surrounded by positive historical truths and events, which is the vision of hope we have. Right. Many years ago, America was a lawless country. The fastest gunslinger was the person who lived. Germany, before it became what it is, was deeply divided.
Yep.
The UAE
Yep.
was a desert country not too long ago.
Right.
Coming back to Africa, our very own Rwanda.
Yep.
20 years ago,
yep,
was so decimated by genocide. Nobody ever thought it would become what it is today.
You're right.
You said we shouldn't be passionate. I'm finding it difficult to restrain myself. Anybody who would tell me that America can become what it is today, Dubai, Singapore, Malaysia, and you tell me Nigeria cannot make it, let me pause there, because I don't want to go overboard.
Yeah.
But that's the visions of hope we have.
Awesome.
We will get there, and we will make Nigeria into something that the whole world will marvel at, because we're beginning to come together. A group of people are beginning to come together who understand this and who are working together, who believe in this, who are passionate, who will not allow anything to deter us from making this Nigeria. And I want to say, we don't have to be in government to make it happen.
No, not at all.
No, Chris spoke about the power of the citizens. Right. So So there's some things we can begin to do as citizens, to make this to happen. And we know that nothing will stop us. So that's my take on that.
So, excellent. It's am I right to say yours is based on the law of evolution? Because if it's a natural law that regardless of what the situation, a civilization will reach its highest point at some point, then Nigeria is obviously in the offing for that to happen.
Yes. Especially if we do what we need to do.
You excluded England in that because England had horrible times as well. These people used to burn people on the stake barely 2 years or 200.
Yeah.
I agree with you completely. So that vision of hope is well aligned with what we want. Thank you. David, I know you dropped in late, and I was going to introduce you formally because we've planned to, take this conversation to a different level going forward in view of having different podcast series. And as you can see, we're all in alignment with the great job that you've been doing with the New Nigerian Network. David runs the New Nigerian Network, which has a series of podcasts with Nigerians who are not only achievers, but who have a set mindset of wanting something new. So if you identify yourself as a new Nigerian, he would obviously have that podcast with you on a one-to-one. So you can share your own aspiration, dreams, and he's been doing this for more than 2 years. So him being on the platform is a no-brainer for me. And I know that going forward is a situation where we will all find alignments and have our content being generated individually from this purpose. But let's end it with your own vision of hope for a new Nigeria, just based on what you've heard so far and based on your experiences.
Thank you, Solomon. I've been listening to you guys. You've said it all. The only thing left is the alignment by like-minded Nigerians, the alignment to move forward, the ability and the willingness to educate the youth, the next generation. As far as I'm concerned, these 2023 elections have shown us that it is possible to mobilize.
Yeah.
And there's no time as now to continue that mobilization. If you listen to some of the podcasts we've done in the past, every little helps, one at a time. Go into the grassroots, go into your local community, educate the children, get them aligned and prepared for 2027, where we will definitely take over the country. It is possible. Obviously, the judicial processes should work, but we must have a mindset that we've tried to do it, we can see it can be done, and let's move on to 2027 and take our country back. From then on, or from now on, let's hold all those in power accountable. There's a lot of videos on the internet where the youth are openly saying it now. You've won your elections. Let's see what you do. If you don't do what you say you will do, you will be held accountable by us in your community. This is all we need. Spread that word around, gather the people together, register them. We now know the processes. We'll get the experts into INEC, get the experts into their systems, set it up. There's no excuse, no rigging, no chance of it, because the technology between now and the next election would have been upgraded by experts from people who have realized what's happening. Yeah. I never give up hope on Nigeria, but let's keep the education going. Thank you, guys.
Well, thanks, David. You're listening in the background. In as much as we prepare just in case for 2027, there is a mindset that it's not going to get there. The hope that we are keeping alive is that justice prevails. So we're counting on Nigerians as well. That is why we are creating this new mindset, this new way of thinking to align with what is going on now as well. So if you are a new Nigerian and you know liberation is the order of the day, for instance, you have to liberate your mind from possibilities of failures and align with what it is possible. based on either justice or profound truth. But I think there's a lot to come out from these conversations. So the value is in the fact that we are aligned. A few of us have just met each other today, but it feels like we've been doing this already for weeks, you know. And then going forward, we don't want to restrict it to just what we talked about today. We can talk about religion at some point. We can talk about technology. We can talk about just what's going on the grassroots level, or we can talk about emotions. We can talk about mental health, everything to support the new Nigeria that we want to build. Yeah, on that note, if anybody has goodbyes or one-liners, that would be great. So we can wrap it up.
Nice to meet you all.
Yeah.
Till next time.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Leslie, Chris.
I'll show my face next time if you give me much more notice.
We saw your picture. We saw your picture already.
The picture's good, yeah? Okay, thank you.
The picture is an amazing smile, man. Honestly, I wish
I'm so glad I'm meeting all of you. This is amazing. This is what we're living for.
Yeah.
And we're grateful that we're coming together in this alignment.
One thing I can assure you, don't worry about it, Chris. One thing I can assure you guys, you know, if we're a team and we've seen this happen, and a lot of people are waiting to do this kind of thing, you know, 100%. It's the alignment, like David said, that's always been the key, you know? So we have decided to do it.
Yeah.
Best decision there.
Yeah, first decision is to come together. Yeah, truly, I've looked forward to having this kind of event or program running, and honestly, this is one of our happiest moments because it's coming at a time when Nigeria needed it most. You know, so now we are not trying to do it. We are here already. We started. And I can imagine what the future will look like ahead of time. Yeah,
I agree.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
You're welcome. So we now have an anchor point to visualize hope. Fingers crossed, nothing.
Yeah.
But the alignment is now, we can now align to a new environment while we look forward to building it from within. Okay, guys. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to more engagements. Huh?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Yeah,
have a lovely
thank you.
day.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.
Kono bia kani ko bia eri kafe